So this is the third week of our series, Growth Track, and today we're talking about the mission, values, and vision of the well. Now, I ride motorcycles. It's kind of the way I blow off steam, and I've been blessed to have a Harley, and my family gave me a Harley gift card for Father's Day. And on Veterans Day, just a couple weekends ago, I went to a Harley dealership to get a pair of boots. And a lot of bikers, if you don't know this, are veterans. Anytime you go to a biker event, it's going to be at least half veterans. And it may be the camaraderie, I'm not sure, but there's an attraction for veterans. And so Harley dealerships throw a party for veterans every Veterans Day. And the dealership I went to was grilling out, and they had music and drinks. You could smell like bratwurst, and that was just awesome. And, lots of AC/DC blaring. You can picture a Harley biker music, and in the parking lot, they had built a tall wooden ring, I'll say 20 feet tall, and I don't know how wide, but just this huge wooden ring in the parking lot, and I had never seen one of those before. I'm like, what in the world is that? Is it a museum, like a pop-up shop, or what is it exactly? And then I heard an announcement, okay, the show is about to begin in 5 minutes. Make your way up the stairs and gather around the ring. And as I got up there, I realized, as the announcer was introducing, there are guys and ladies down here and several motorcycles, and this thing's called the Wall of Death. The Wall of Death. And so I realized pretty quickly what these people are doing, and I took just a short video. Want to give you an idea, at least, about what the Wall of Death is. Let's watch. The whole time I was thinking, should I be standing here right now? And now, how nuts do you have to be on a scale of 1 to 10 to participate in the Wall of Death? And just 12, 15. So I watched these guys, and just awesome skill and entertainment. And I thought, imagine the hours of practice it takes to be able to do this without realizing why it's called the Wall of Death. Like, how many hours do you have to dedicate to this? These people have a clear mission, don't they? You have to understand your purpose. If you're going to participate in the Wall of Death, they are dedicated to their purpose. They are all in. They are sold out 100% to their whatever practice and whatever skill it takes to get through the Wall of Death without finding out what it's called that. And I thought about, when it comes to my mission, my purpose, do I understand my purpose that clearly? Do I understand, am I as dedicated to my mission as these gentlemen and ladies in the Wall of Death? So first of all, I want to talk about the mission statement of the well. Now, some people who are just super entrepreneurial, and dedicated in their own lives have a personal mission statement. I think that's a good idea, actually. I've dabbled in that throughout my life, but we have a mission statement here at the well. And a mission statement, in my understanding, is the same as a purpose statement. It answers the question, why do we exist? Why do I exist? So I could have a personal mission statement. But why does the well exist? And this is our mission statement at the well. This is why the well exists. We want to create a community where thinking, compassionate people can find a spiritual home and cultivate a Jesus-inspired life. In every membership class, we have it online on Zoom. We have another one coming up here on December 6th. It's dialogical. We just have interaction the whole time. And I always ask folks, okay, what words or phrases jump out at you when you read our mission statement? Is there anything you appreciate about that? And usually somebody will mention the two words together there, thinking and compassionate. They will say, I just appreciate the fact that this is a church for both thinking and compassionate people. And of course, it's Jesus-inspired life. We want to follow Jesus. We are Christians, even though that's a loaded word for some folks. We're church. But folks will say, I appreciate the fact that the Well is a community of both thinking and compassionate people. Now, the reason they say that is it seems like there are a lot of Christians and churches in America who have a really hard time with those two words. Do you know what I mean? They have a hard time thinking deeply about their faith. Why do we believe what we believe? How does that square with living in an evidence-based world as a thinking people, as a thinking person? What does it look like to be a person of faith? Right now, we have ads running on social media. One of them is faith and science do not have to be enemies. And you should see some of the comments under that ad. We're really quick to delete ones that are just really out there. But for some people, that's a really hard challenge, to be a community where they're both thinking and compassionate people. And compassionate stands out to people because, let's be honest, we see a lot of vocal Christians in the United States who talk about how Christian they are, but do they seem very compassionate? We're living in a time in which some people define their faith by what appears to be hatred or bigotry, defining themselves over against other people, demonizing certain groups of people, saying, I'm a Christian, therefore I don't think those people belong. Like, wait a second, is that what it looks like to follow Jesus Christ? And so we want to be a community of thinking, compassionate people. And there are a lot of people who want that, but they don't know that exists. So they feel spiritually homeless. We have a couple who have been a part of the Well online since, I think, the beginning of COVID, if not before, in the middle of Illinois. And Jim and Sally. And they've been a part of the Well. Yeah, you can welcome Jim and Sally. That's good. And they've been a part of the Well from central Illinois for more than a couple of years. And when I got to talk with them, they said, it's just hard to find churches like this in much of the country. So there are lots and lots of people who feel spiritually homeless. According to Pew Research, there are about 6 to 7 million evangelical Christians who have been displaced over the past 6 years, who have left their churches because they realized their church was heading in a direction they just couldn't go. With this mixture of religion and politics in America, this just strange, toxic fusion of religion and politics, and they left their churches. There are 6 or 7 million evangelicals in America just kind of floating around, spiritually homeless. And then there are people who haven't been to church in years and years and years, or if ever. And they think of Christians, and they don't think of the word thinking and compassionate. But for some reason, they have an interest in Jesus. And they look for community. Are there other people like me? Is there a place I can belong? Are there other people I can know and journey with? Well, the answer is yes. There are. And we're not the only one. There are quite a few of these communities around the country. A lot of us don't really know about each other yet, are just kind of discovering each other. But that's the mission of the Well, to create a community where thinking, compassionate people can find a spiritual home and cultivate a Jesus-inspired life. And when we talk about values describe how do we get there? How do we live this out? So our mission, our purpose is to create this kind of a community. Values describe how we do that. How do we live out this existence as a community? And so here are our 3 values at the Well. And this is a process that we all want to be guided by in our spiritual lives, and they really coincide to our growth track. But so the first value of the Well is a place where you can be honest about both your faith and your doubts. So that, too, you can spiritually grow to become your best self. And linked to that, you can partner with God to make a difference with your life. So how do we create a community where thinking, compassionate people can find a spiritual home and cultivate a Jesus-inspired life? Well, how we do that is we want to be honest about our faith and our doubts so that we can spiritually grow to become our best selves, and we can partner with God to make a difference with your life. That's what we believe it means to follow Jesus at the Well. So our first value, the Well is a place where you can be honest about both your faith and your doubts. A few years ago, back before we moved to Perry. A gentleman visited the well, and I'm not sure if he maybe thought we were a different church and he got lost and went to the wrong one. But afterwards, he came up to me and he said, he's like, "You're trying to make people doubt. Are you trying to make people doubt?" He's like, "No, you're trying to make people doubt." And I just thought, adventures in missing the point. Maybe he did end up in the wrong place. But I said to him, "Well, we're not trying to make people doubt. We don't have to try to make people doubt. We're actually not trying to poke the bear, believe it or not. There's enough of that going on. We're not trying to make people have doubts who are just, they're 100% certain about all metaphysical questions, and they've got it all figured out, and every I is dotted and every T is crossed, and they've known for years, and their faith has never changed in decades. We're not trying to provoke those people. What we're doing at the well is we're acknowledging there are people who already have questions and doubts. And those questions and doubts they have are a barrier between them and God, them and whatever faith would look like, because they don't have a way to work through those. Often that's the case. Some people will listen to podcasts and read books, and they'll kind of be in charge of their own spiritual journey. That's excellent. But there are a lot of people who think, I wish I had some kind of place or community to process all this, but I don't have that. I don't know that it exists. And so they go through life kind of never feeling at home. Again, think of our mission statement, a spiritual home, where I don't know what my relationship with God is. I don't know what my relationship with faith is. Can I be a follower of Jesus? I don't know. Because they just don't know of a place where they can be honest about their faith and their doubts. We're not trying to make people doubt. We're trying to create a community for people who already do. And that's a barrier between them and God, between them and the healthiest spiritual life that they could have, so that we could kick that wall down. Can I get an amen, anybody? We could kick that barrier down for people and say, no, you actually can be honest. You can be a thinking person. You can be intellectually honest in a community of faith. And this needs to be said. There might be people who think I say that and think, well, he just means be honest as long as you all come to the same conclusion, at the end of the day. And it's actually not true. And then there are other people who will say I'm wishy-washy. There's always some kind of weird, framing or attack or misunderstanding or intentional misunderstanding about what we're doing. Here's what we mean by our first value, that you can be honest about your faith and your doubts. I don't have it on the screen, but there was a chart that's been kind of floating around on the internet lately, and it's actually not all of them, but it's a chart of there are at least a couple of hundred denominations of Christianity on the chart. Maybe you've seen that meme floating around. And there are actually thousands of denominations of Christianity around the world. And there are people who have, to me, and I want to love everybody, it just seems like some people want to live under the willful delusion that they have it all figured out, and everybody else, like 2,000 or 3,000 other denominations are wrong, and they've got this T crossed and the other denominations don't, and that just looks to me like folly. That just kind of looks to me like I have to laugh and think, how arrogant does a person have to be? It's not wishy-washy to be honest and say, for people who, the Bible's clear, and then like 3,000 other people disagree with them. Can we just be honest that maybe it's not so clear on every single subject, even when people think it is? Of course we have convictions, but what we're doing is we're just being honest that no, people are not going to agree on every tiny little matter of faith and question that people have had, and that there are thousands of denominations that disagree on those things. Of course, people are not going to agree on everything. So why pretend? Why pretend? Here's what we mean by that first value, that you can be honest about your faith and your doubts. We think the world doesn't need another hypocrite factory. Anybody want to say amen to that? Maybe I'm just insecure today, but I just love feedback. If you're with me, that the world doesn't need another hypocrite factory where people feel like they have to pretend that they agree with everything, and then they just there is no even working through your faith at that point. It's just people pretending that they agree with whatever the bullet point statement on the church website is, whatever the pastor says, or let's just be honest, folks. Let's be realistic here. So you can be honest about your faith and your doubts, so that once we knock that barrier down where you can't be honest, once you can be honest about those things, now I'm free. I realize, I can be an intellectually honest Christian, whatever that means for you. And it's hundreds of years old, but predates America. There were churches founded in New England that believed in freedom of conscience. That each person is given the gift by God to worship God according to the dictates of their own conscience. That actually predates the First Amendment. That's why we have a First Amendment, because there are Christians who believe that, who came to this country, instead of having a state church that's run by a monarch, right? And so we kick that barrier down where you can be honest so that you can spiritually grow to become your best self. Once that barrier's out of the way, you think, I can be intellectually honest. I can be a Christian and be honest about these questions. I can be a Christian as I work through these things, even if we don't all arrive at the same place. Now that barrier's gone. Now I'm free to follow Jesus to the best of my ability and become all that God has created me to be. Now that barrier is out of the way, I'm free to be a disciple. I'm free to be a follower of Jesus. Now, the first guest speaker we ever had at the Well back in 2018, we launched the Well 11 months before COVID started. I have great timing. But the first guest speaker we ever had was a guy named Jared Bias. We have a few of you who were around then. And Jared, along with Pete Enns, is the co-host of a very popular podcast called The Bible for Normal People, which I love. I love the title. And they write some books and Bible studies. And when Jared visited here, he was just finishing up a book that he was about to release. And we were the first group he shared his material with, actually. And the point of Jared's talk and the book he released was that Christians are to be defined by love, not by a specific creed. Now, once again, he's just being honest there. There are all kinds of creeds depending on the branch of Christianity that you're part of. And those are important. But he said, really, Christians are to be defined by love. And to some people, they thought that was controversial. They're like, oh my goodness, Christians defined by love? What kind of church are you starting here? And then, of course, we read in John chapter 13, Jesus says, a new command I give you, love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. By this, everyone you will know that you are my disciples if you help me out, if you love one another. So Jared didn't make that up. We didn't make that. We're not reinventing anything here. Jesus, Jesus said, they will know you are my disciples if you have all your theology same as the church website. Is that what it says? Or by a particular denominational creed? No, of course, Jesus said, they'll know you're my disciples if you have love for one another. And there were people who thought that was controversial, that he wrote a book about it. It's the time that we live in, and religion always has the tendency to drift, experiences mission drift from the point down to just wars and fighting over little details that don't matter. But we believe that being a Christian, as we sang earlier, is about loving God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and loving your neighbor as yourself. And Jesus said, they'll know you're my disciple if you love one another. And that's how you grow to become your best self. That's what it looks like to become the person that God has created you to be. When you have love for one another. And we all want to get promotions. We all want to be upwardly mobile. We all want to pay our bills. But what it really looks like, the purpose of life, is to love God with all we are and love our neighbor as ourselves. And they'll know that we're followers of Jesus if we have love for one another. And we have all kinds of ways of doing that here, from ministry teams on Sunday mornings to connect groups that meet periodically throughout the year. Well, LGBTQ+. Girls' Night Out is tomorrow night. And that's a great place. Well students, well kids, growth track classes, all of the things that we do here, social events, those are all opportunities to prove that we're disciples of Jesus and love one another. And we help each other become our best selves. And then our third value, and it's all linked. You can become your best self, and you can partner with God to make a difference with your life. So you can be honest about your faith and your doubts, so that you can spiritually grow to become your best self, and you can partner with God to make a difference with your life. And last week we talked about discovering your shape for serving. We have a Discover Your Purpose class that meets several times a year. And SHAPE stands for spiritual gifts, heart, which is also your passion. What are you passionate about? A stands for abilities, P for personality, and E for experience. And I invited you to take out your notes app on your phone and start to jot some things down last week, and hopefully that got you started, and maybe you come to Discover Your Purpose class in 2024, and you discover your shape for serving. How has God called you to partner with God to make a difference with your life? Maybe we can even ask other people, what do you think I'm good at? What do you think? How does God work through me? And we talked about your passion. We talked about personality temperaments, and so on. And every time I think about personality, I think of this. Years ago, somebody came to the church I was leading at the time because she realized she had been in a toxic version of Christianity for a long time, and started to read and listen to podcasts and find her way out of that. And she found the well and came to the well. And she told me one morning, she's really thankful for the well and really happy that she had found it. And she said, our former pastor could have been a cult leader. He just had such a charismatic personality. And then she said, I don't have to worry about that with you. I was like, wait a second here. I mean, if you're going to give somebody a compliment, like you'd make a terrible cult leader. That's a pretty good compliment. I'll take it. But then I'm thinking, wait a second. What are you saying exactly? So maybe I do or don't have the kind of personality that I need to have to lead a church. But your personality plays into your shape. Who has God called you to be? What is your purpose? How do you partner with God? We talked about your passion. We said last week that often, if you're not sure what your passion is, often your greatest passion comes from your greatest pain. Maybe even the holidays have heightened that sense of pain for you. Maybe a memory of that. Maybe something happened to you in your life and it caused you tremendous pain. And our passion, it works like this, where we think, you know what, that should never happen to anybody. Nobody else should have to go through what I went through. And then we develop, out of empathy, we develop passion. And we're motivated because we know what that feels like. And so we have this passion for making sure that other people don't experience that. We talked about Popeye when he said, I've had all I can stands and I can't stands no more. That's how every positive change has ever happened in this planet. When people had a passion. And that's how we discover our shape and ways that we can partner with God to make a difference with our life. We talked about Niños de Baja, some ways that we could live that out, and just had a great meeting recently with some folks who are connected to Niños de Baja, which is a foster home in the North Baja in Mexico. And we have some exciting stuff coming up in early 2024. About 20, some of you are sponsoring children, at Niños de Baja. And we have some exciting opportunities coming up that we're going to announce in the next few weeks. But that's one way of partnering with God to make a difference with your life. Some of you have already started to do that today. Do you see the angel tree out there on the welcome table? Thank you to the ladies who put the angel tree together. And you've probably heard of angel tree before, but there are tags on that tree out there. At least maybe you grabbed them all. I'm not sure. If there are any tags left, grab one on the way out. But each one of those tags represents a gift that was requested by a student in Phoenix who we believe is experiencing homelessness. Could you imagine a homeless child in elementary school? School's hard enough. Just the pressures of being young in school, but homeless as a child. And they've requested gifts, and so you have the opportunity to bless a child in that circumstance this Christmas. If you pull a tag off that angel tree on your way out, and then the gifts are due back on December 10th. That's a hard stop because they need to get the kids the gifts before school lets out for Christmas break. And so you just bring your gift back and put it there at the welcome table on December 10th or next week too if you want. That's another way of partnering with God to make a difference with your life. Now, more nuanced, there are as many ways as there are people because nobody has the same unique calling that you have. Nobody else has the shape that you have. And when we begin to follow Jesus more closely and grow and become our best selves, we start to realize, like, you know, I like having a nice house and nice cars and promotions and all. That's great, good. But that's not the purpose of my life. And I want to allow God to work through me. You know, those things that I thought, they used to do it for me, they just don't do it for me anymore. And now I want to see God work through me to bless the lives of children, to bless the lives of people. Maybe it's like me, I have a passion for launching communities like this, where people come, and every single week we have new people here. And I'm going to share a few of the stories just later on today, but every week, practically, I get to hear stories of people who show up at this church. And they say things to me like, you know, I had given up. And they'll have tears in their eyes. I had given up. Thinking that I could find a church, that I could be a part of a community. And I discovered this. I saw an ad online, and I thought, what in the world? And I researched it, and wow, I can't believe this exists. And they show up. And often they'll tell me the pain they've experienced in life. And here's the awesome thing I know. When people are new here and they're sharing that with me, I think, and a lot of times I'll tell people this, I can't wait for you to meet some people in this church and find out how not alone you really are. How there are people just like you. And you are gonna meet some of the best friends you've ever had in your life in a matter of weeks and months. I get to feel that every single week as we build a church like this and partner with God to create communities like this. Now, along those lines, real quick, before we wrap it up and talk about the vision of the well, I want to invite you, if you're new, to Newcomers Lunch. If you're new to the church, if I haven't really gotten to meet you, I want to invite you. We haven't had one of these since pre-COVID. So I want to invite you to Newcomers Lunch. It's next Sunday, December 3rd, which is the first Sunday in Advent, 1 p.m. Stefan and Nick are hosting it at their home. We might have to knock a wall out. I'm not sure how many people are going to show. We're trying to get RSVPs, though, if you stop by the welcome table to pick up that gift and RSVP. But this is just going to be an hour lunch, chance to get to know you. Hey, you know, what's your name? How'd you find out about the well? Do you have any questions? I'll talk about the story of the well a little bit, and just a time to hang out and just get to know people. And then right after that, now it could be that you're really new and you're interested in membership class. Maybe you've been around for a while and you're interested in membership class. Membership class is online, so if you're online with us, you can be a part of it. But that's Wednesday, December 6th, 6 p.m. Arizona time. It's an hour long. We talk about what it means to belong, what it means to be a member, a body part of Christ at the well, basically being on our team that makes this church a reality. And if you want to be a member of the well, you can fill out a form after the class. It's not high pressure. It's not a timeshare, I always say. But they have a form after the class, and it's a great time to meet people. So those are some ways that we can live out the mission and values of the well. And then finally, I want to talk about this. We have a vision statement on our website. And I realize, because I'm the same way, okay? So let's just be honest here. I love to hear sermons where it speaks to me personally, and I just know, oh man, I'm going to write that down. You know, that affects my personal life and a felt need that I have right now. I'm like, man, that is going to make my life better tomorrow if I put that into action. And sometimes when a pastor starts to talk about the big picture, sometimes I think, well, it doesn't affect me as personally. But I want to challenge you on that. If you think that, that's not really true. Because the vision of the well does affect you personally. If you appreciate the well, if you feel it's important, if you feel the joy and the fulfillment of being a part of a community like this, it does affect you personally, no matter if you're here in person or online. So this is highly, highly personal. So I want to talk about the vision of the well in general, and then where we need to go in the next year. And I want to invite you to really be open to the voice of God. And is God speaking to you about any of these things that we're talking about in the next year? Because if the well means anything to you, this is extremely important and it's extremely personal. So we have a vision statement on our website. It's been there since 2018. We meant it now. We meant it then. We mean it now. We believe the well should have a permanent home in the Southeast Valley, an online community, and because churches like the well are needed in every metropolitan area in America, we believe God is calling us to help new like-minded churches come into existence. It's been our vision from the beginning. It's really not, I don't think it's any kind of surprise. I think it's kind of common sense, to be honest. We believe that, we want to be here permanently in the Southeast Valley, maybe in other parts of Metro Phoenix. Who knows what the future holds? We want to have an online community because with technology we can now. And like Jim and Sally and so many others, there are people around the country where it's just not realistic that there's going to be a church like this in their area. But how many of you would agree with me that there should be a church like this in every city in America? Do you agree with that? And okay, we don't want to just, believe in a pipe dream. We don't want to say, let's start a church like this in every city in America tomorrow. Well, no, we don't have the resources to do that. However, there's a pastor that I got to meet actually years ago, and he and his wife started a church in a garage. There are pictures to prove it. They're literally meeting in a garage. And it's now the largest church in America. It's over 100,000 people. We don't necessarily have numerical goals like that. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But they started in the mid-90s, It wasn't that long ago in the grand scheme of things. And here's something that he says that stuck with me, and this is true for us at the Well. It's also true in your personal life. For whatever dream, vision you have, maybe it's a business, maybe it's a hobby, maybe it's a volunteer thing, or an organization, or just you living out your own purpose. He says, we tend to overestimate what we can accomplish in the short term and underestimate what we can accomplish in the long term. Isn't that good? So many people give up right before they succeed because they overestimated what they could do in the short term. They thought it would take less time and less money, so they overestimated what they could do, and they thought, the pipe dream didn't come true, so we have to quit. And then they miss out on those breakthroughs that would have happened because we tend to underestimate what we can accomplish in the long term. It's true of the Well, it's true of their church, it's true of you personally. And any kind of personal goals that you have. I love that. We tend to overestimate what we can accomplish in the short term and underestimate what we can accomplish in the long term. Therefore, a lot of people won't even believe in a vision in the first place. So it's too big of a dream. You can't help start churches in major cities in America. We're just, we're kind of rattling around in an auditorium, right? You what is this guy talking about? And we'll start to poo-poo dreams and visions. It doesn't matter if it's a church or if it's a friend of yours sharing something with you. Sometimes it takes courage for people to share dreams and visions. Here's a good pro tip for life. Never poo-poo people's dreams. Can I get an amen to that? Never do that. Especially you get a child, a young person, anybody in life, no matter how old they are, let's be honest. And there's a dream, there's a vision, there's something bubbling up on the inside of them. Never poo-poo somebody's dream and vision. Real quick, I saw an interview with Chris Martin, the singer for Coldplay. And they're doing a world tour. They're like on concert 123 around the world. They've sold millions and millions of records. And he was being interviewed by a lady who said her teenage son will pound out beats all the time. She's always telling him hey, can you stop pounding on things? Because he's always drumming. He's always pounding on the car or the kitchen table or whatever. And he's like, just be careful with that. And he's a super nice guy, but you could tell. She's like, I always tell him to stop. He's like, just be careful with that. Be careful. He knows. That kid who's pounding out beats on the kitchen table might be pounding beats out in stadiums around the world in about 20 years. Never poo-poo people's dreams and visions. Where does the overall vision for the Well come from? In any church that wants to follow Jesus, it comes from Jesus. In Matthew chapter 16, Jesus said to his disciples in a very challenged time when it was just a few disciples rattling around in the Roman Empire. I think I have it here. Jesus said, I will build my church, and the gates of death, the gates of hell, the gates of Hades in Greek, will not prevail against it. Jesus said, I will build my church. No matter how bleak it looks, I will build my church, and the gates of death will not prevail against it. Who's building the church? Jesus. Who does the well belong to? Jesus. What is any church that really wants to follow Jesus? Who does it belong to? Jesus. Jesus said, I will build my church. We're always moving toward our vision of having, a permanent home here in the Southeast Valley and an online community that's thriving, and to help new like-minded churches start wherever we can around America. Now, there's some people, maybe you showed up new and it's Thanksgiving weekend and there are people traveling, and you kind of look around and you think, man, he kind of talks like there are thousands of people in this room right now. And is it too presumptuous to think we could do those things? Well, number one, we tend to overestimate what we can do in the short term and underestimate what we can do in the long term. But I want you to think now. Here's what's happened since 2018. We started a church in 2018 in a little elementary school. We were rattling around in that room. We spaced the seats really far apart to make it look like there are more people there. And then 11 months later, COVID hit. We went online only. We actually grew online. That's a testament to the people who are part of the well. New people actually connected with us online. And then we relaunched in July of 2021 in person and online. And once again, we had to space the seats out. I showed these pictures before we moved here. And then we outgrew that elementary school. And I know it's Thanksgiving weekend and we have people traveling, but on a typical week here, it's the same attendance as the record in the old place. We outgrew that school, and so we moved here to Perry High School in April of this year, so about 9 months ago. And this auditorium seats 464 people. So we have curtains up to kind of curtain off. This bottom bowl seats 300 people. Now, I think after COVID, you never want to be in a situation where people are like literally shoulder to shoulder on top of each other. Our space expectations have changed a little bit. But if we doubled in size, we would easily fill this bottom bowl on a typical Sunday, not Thanksgiving Sunday, but a typical Sunday. And then there's a community online. And so actually, it's easy to see how with that kind of track record, all the numbers at the well are up and to the right, which I guess from your vantage point looks like this. Everything's moving in the right direction here. We just need to keep going. And now what's the next step for us? To take the next step and the next step and the next step and the next step. And there will come a time when we'll look back and say, man, we had a big vision to have a permanent home here in the Southeast Valley and a thriving online community and helping to start churches around the country. Man, we weren't sure if we could do that. But see, you start to do the right things. And you see progress the way we already have. If we just follow our trend line, our trajectory. In time, you start to see, man, things are happening here. Things are happening here. It's true of your own life as well. Whatever dream, vision you have. Here's the key. I've been doing this for 10 years in church planting. You just put one foot in front of the other. That's the key. And when you want to give up, guess what you don't do? Give up. You don't give up. A lot of times the people who succeed in life are just people who didn't give up. They just didn't stop. My wife and I are those kinds of people. No matter what we face, we're too dumb to stay down. We just kept getting back up. And that's why communities like this exist. So here's where I want to go in the next year. And I'm going to close by showing you a 4-minute video that I'm super excited to show you. In the next year, and here's where I want to invite you to be open. If the well is important to you, and you care about this community, in person, online, maybe you're watching this later, I want to invite you to be open right now, wherever you are, prayerfully. And I want you to think about what I'm about to share and how you fit into that. Most of you know that I have a full-time job. I have a day job that I work, and I pastor this church in addition to a full-time job. I've kind of figured out a rhythm of life to where that's possible. And it makes starting a church like this possible. But my limitation is time. And that makes sense, right? And at the same time, what I'm going to talk about in the next year, our churches, no matter what the situation is, all churches need this. But we really, really need this because of that limitation of time. It's been said that everything rises and falls on leadership. You can see that throughout life. You have a leader who makes something happen, a point leader, a person. The buck stops there, a person, and they make it happen. Everything rises and falls on leadership. Now, ultimately, with the well, the buck stops with me. I have that privilege and that responsibility, and it is a responsibility. But my limitation is time, and no matter what the church situation is, every church needs this, but we really need this. And that is, we need some committed point leaders over several areas of the church. We need some committed point leaders over several areas of the church. And I want to show you at least a starting place for that, a list here. And I want you to look at this list as you prayerfully listen to the voice of God. And I'm not sure God's going to say, hey, you should do that in an audible voice. But I think it looks more like, what's my shape? How has God shaped me? And is God speaking to me? Is God calling me? Because in 2024, these are the next major steps for the well. It's leadership inside, strengthening the structure, the inside of the well. We have this awesome facility we moved to. On most weeks, we're kind of respectable in attendance in a massive room, with the curtains and so on. Every week is a new record from what the place we used to meet. But now we need to strengthen the inside of the well. And it will continue to grow here. But here are some needs that we have. How many of you would say, we need more potlucks in this church? Can I get an amen? Are you too full of turkey to say that? I think we do. I think we need more social events in the church. And we have people who are passionate about that, and some people who want to be involved with that, and some people who have set them up already, but they need help too. But we need a point leader over fellowship. We need a point leader over what I call first impressions. Now that's the welcome table, name tags, it's greeters, it's any kind of hospitality here. We have amazing people in leadership, but we need a point person to really coordinate all of that. So we're giving a good first impression to people who are coming here for the first time, and they're not sure if they want to go to church or not. They're half scared to death probably. What's this going to be like? And we offer people a warm welcome, but we need a point leader over that ministry. We need a growth track leader. This series, of course, talking about those 4 steps, belonging, becoming, discovering, and making a difference with your life. We need somebody in our church who can help to guide people through that process. And of course, the buck stops with me. I'm involved in all these things. But these are the people that I'm going to interact with the most, providing leadership to them as they lead over certain areas. Then a missions leader, probably specifically, it's part of growth track, but it's probably something specific that we need. Where locally and then internationally, even like Niños de Baja, we are serving. We're partnering with God to make a difference with our life. We're getting involved. We're blessing children. We're in organizations that are making a difference and making this world a better place, especially for the most vulnerable. We need a missions point person. And then finally, we need a well students leader. My wife and I, I'm 46 years old. I'm about to go lead well students. And, we're maybe okay for an interim, but I don't think we're the long-term solution. We need a well students leader. And now I don't think these aren't full-time jobs. They're not part-time jobs. To be honest, they're volunteer positions right now. But maybe a few hours a week, dedicated. And for those of you who are aware of your shape, or you're kind of discovering your shape, and maybe you're discovering it right now, and you're thinking, I care about this community. I do believe that communities like the Well are vitally important. And let me tell you, friends, I won't belabor it, but in 2024, it's going to be a tough year for America. And you're going to see, if you're not already convinced, the importance of communities like this. Oh boy. And if you know that's the case, and you think, I think I'm gifted, I think my shape fits one of these areas, I want to invite you to let me know. We put that email address up earlier, info@wellchurch.org. I think it's pretty easy to remember. You'll see it again in our closing announcements, info@wellchurch.org. Maybe it's grabbing me out in the lobby here some week. Maybe it's Facebook messaging the Well Facebook page or me. Let's talk. Let's talk. This is vitally, vitally important. What I don't want to happen is you think, okay, well, he wrapped up the sermon, and we don't think of the importance of what you're looking at right now. Everything rises and falls on leadership. And this is where the Well needs to go in 2024. Strengthening the inside and building leaders, and we'll get there. Why? because Jesus said, I will build my church, and the gates of death, the gates of hell, the gates of Hades will not overcome it. It's Jesus' church. It's not mine, it's not yours. But we're members of the body of Christ, his hands and feet. And Jesus wants to build his church. Let me just ask you, does Jesus want to help to build his church through you in any of these areas? And of course, all these people are going to lead teams. So maybe you're not the point person, but maybe you're on the team. I want to ask you if you would prayerfully consider that. I'm going to close with this. Just a few nights ago, I asked anybody who would be willing, if they would just share quickly what they appreciate about the well. And I had a great Tuesday night. Let me tell you, I had 6 or 7 meetings back to back, and it was a night that warmed my heart, listening to people talk about what they appreciate so much about this community. And I edited it down to a 4-minute video, and it's how I'm going to close the sermon today. I want you to enjoy this 4-minute video of people here at the well talking about why they appreciate this community. Let's watch.
Well, has kept me from completely giving up on religion and Christian organizations altogether. When I first came here, I think like a lot of us can understand through what we've gone through, is it really helped me to realize that there are actual Christians that want to follow Jesus and follow what Jesus says.
So I came to the well to an ad in the Santan Sun, and it was about we have issues. I looked at it, and it was abortion, and there was about other things like LGBT rights and all these issues that are controversial and yet not really addressed by most churches won't touch those issues. When I saw that, I thought, this is interesting. I got to check this out.
I saw in these videos at the well that there was actually a church that would speak truth, would speak gospel, yet it's still aligned with what I knew to be right regardless.
What I appreciate about the well is the realness of the sermons. There's historical context added into it. It's not just, oh look, the book says this, so we're just going to go with that, right? There's a reason that we're talking about whatever we're talking about, and actually looking into, digging deeper into the whys. When it was written, where it was written, why might it have been written the way it was.
My experience with the well has been the best that I could ever even ask for. It's the safest and most understanding environment, and everyone feels welcome, no matter what race, gender, sexuality.
So I think one of the things that we really appreciate about the well is that everyone is so welcoming, and just all really does mean all. There's no asterisk with membership, where we can commit our time and our voices matter in the church.
A people that truly want to worship as themselves was really refreshing, and it was a Holy Spirit kind of thing. And it just really got me. I knew this was a place I belonged.
Well, for me, the well is a perfect place for those who have become disillusioned with, but still believe in God, but is no longer interested in the conventional church that was unwilling or unable to tackle the issues of the day. And for those who are open-minded and willing to embrace the same people that were on the fringes that Jesus served.
I mean, we've both been going to church most of our lives, and it's the first church that we've actually felt welcomed at. And we felt we could truly be our full, authentic selves.
I have other experiences with churches where they would uphold maybe what people would deem like racist or homophobic, and just very ungodlike and un-Jesus-like. So, yeah, that's why I really appreciate the well for what they do, what they stand for, and I couldn't ask for anything better.
So for me, the well has been a life-giving spring, and it has been a place of reprieve. And I just love the fact that anytime I come and anytime I talk to someone new to me, we all kind of come from the same story, and we all understand that we've all had our trepidations of stepping in, but at the same time, through the years, for me at least, it has proven to be exactly what it says it is. It's a place that everyone is, we may not be on the same page on everything, but we're under the same mission to make the world a better place and to share the love of God and to help people heal.
I was so thankful to hear those folks share. And the mission of the Well is to create a community for these folks, for us, thinking, compassionate people who can find a spiritual home and cultivate a Jesus-inspired life and be honest about our questions and doubts and become our best selves and partner with God to make a difference with our lives. And where we're headed in the next year is continuing to build this community, taking the next step. And it's going to involve those leadership roles and those teams that I shared. Is God speaking to you? Is God calling you? I want to invite you, if that's the case, to speak with me here. Email me, grab my arm, let's talk. I invite you to pray. God, thank you for this community called The Well. Folks who meet here in person and folks who meet online. And God, thank you for the tremendous blessing of hearing folks this week share about what they appreciate about The Well, what you have done in their lives through this community of people, through all of us. Now, God, we want to continue to follow Jesus and take the next steps as Jesus builds his church. And it involves leadership. Everything rises and falls on leadership. We need point leaders in specific areas. For those people, God, I pray that you would speak to them in a way that they can't ignore. Where we hear that still small voice inside, think, I think that fits your shape. And point leaders and people on teams that it takes to strengthen this church, to build the inner structure of The Well, to help us follow you. And we'll continue to grow in attendance and so on. And eventually these curtains will be moved back row by row by row and eventually disappear. And we'll start to look around and think, look at what God is doing here, just like we did in the old elementary school. But God, it starts with people saying yes to you as you build your church. God, thank you for the folks you're speaking to about point leadership and for the folks you're speaking to about maybe serving on some teams that we need in order to follow you and take the next steps as a church. And God, we thank you for what you're going to do as we say yes to you and we become our best selves and we follow you and make a difference with our lives. In Jesus' name, everybody said, amen.